This is Goodnight Qatar for the second day of knockout football at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Adam Jenkins, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler, and Jordan Wilson. Kristian Jack will be joining us a little bit later on in the show. But today, it only seems fitting for all of the shtick I give Ollie on a consistent basis that I let him rejoice in his victories. England wins the Battle of the Lions. They survive with a convincing victory over Senegal. I see what you're trying to do by there. Throwing me off on my throw to Ollie. But a convincing performance, and Ollie, I'm sure it must be different to not feel anxious and uncomfortable for the entire knockout match.
Not the entire match, no. I did for a little while there in the first half, but it's kind of starting to feel like that's a little bit part of the game plan for England, is that they will absorb a little bit of the other teams. And I think it's been a theme of the tournament, to be honest. The other team coming out and trying to press them, trying to disrupt them, just take the sting out of the game for half an hour without really getting anywhere or threatening the other team at all. And then when those legs start to die a little bit, you see England take advantage and put together some really good moves to score a couple of goals and really take control of the game. So, like I said, I think that's been something that's been a thread throughout this tournament, is that quite often the underdog teams in a lot of cases who have tried to press and be quite aggressive off the ball, you see them struggle at the end of the first half and their levels just drop a little bit. And if they haven't taken advantage of the good period they had, and Senegal did have a good period for sure before the England goals, they're in real trouble and they get punished for it. And I thought that was kind of the story of this game as well.
Jordan, what did you make of the performance from the Three Lions?
Yeah, I think it was a great performance. I think Senegal, it's hard to say, right? When you're pressing and you feel like a goal could come, should you just basically go into the half with what you have? You know, sometimes you gamble a bit too much. I think that's what happened with the Senegalese. But one thing I want to notice or point out with Gareth Southgate, that one thing he got right, and when he was playing Mount in the beginning of the tournament, I thought that was maybe the correct thing to do. But seeing Henderson fill into that role and dropping Rice back, like I know some people are giving him heck for it, but it's ended up working out because that midfield three, that trio, is really balanced. Obviously, it helps Henderson scoring. That kind of silences a lot of the haters. But in terms of just getting a leader in there, a midfield presence, I'm really enjoying this England team play. Now, what happens later on in the tournament when they're playing a team that is a bit more stronger going forward? We'll see what happens.
Because Jordan Henderson played, we have one of the most awkward celebrations ever. Like smushing your nose together. Hi!
He loves Bulldogs. Loves them.
If you and I play together, that would be our celebration for sure. Just butt heads.
I don't know what I do, but just like staring at each other, like smushing your noses against one another with
Giroud and Mbappe as well. It was the day of brotherly love.
Yeah, I don't mind just the smushing of the noses. I've never seen that one before. Look, Oliver, you're rather subdued because if I'm an England supporter today, I am so excited about what I'm seeing. And there's one reason more than anything else. A 19-year-old player is taking over this tournament for England in Jude Bellingham. Yeah. How good is Jude Bellingham? And he's a teenager, for crying out loud. This player is outrageous. These are the best England midfield performances I've seen since Paul Gascoigne back in 1990. And I'm serious. And think about all these brilliant players who have played in England's midfields over the years. The Gerrards, the Scholes, the Lampards of the world. Always for England, they'd be good, not great. Not able to take over a game. That's exactly what we're seeing Jude Bellingham do. Not only this game today, which he did in the first half, his ball to Henderson for his goal was picture perfect. The counterattack, he sprung it, then played the pass wide left to Phil Foden for the first goal. Jude Bellingham is becoming one of the top midfielders in this tournament and one of the best midfielders in world football today. He is an absolute monster. I mocked Birmingham City, okay, when they decided they sold him to Borussia Dortmund and they retired his number 22. I'm like, what? He's like 17. What are you doing? You can't do that. They're smarter than I thought because they know that this was going to come, that this player was going to turn into a world phenom. Jude Bellingham is the number one reason why England fans can think big and think that something special may be on the horizon here.
Ollie, I see Golden Hour is doing a very good job for you right now, just illuminating the right side of your face and all the smiles. What does England have to complain about
Hey,
right now?
Jude. Let's go.
It's a genuine question. You know that they're looking for reasons to not believe with the French. That's just what the tabloids there do. But it seems like from that performance, there was very little to complain about for the Three Lions.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm subdued, and I agree that Bellingham is absolutely brilliant, and there is reason to be excited about this England team, and I think I've said that at the start of the tournament. I have a lot of faith in Gareth Southgate, and maybe more than the average England fan. But there's a couple of reasons I'm subdued. One is that I think I have a cold, so that's not helping. The second thing is that the second reason is that the tournament starts now for England, right? Like, this is where the real tests begin, and this is where we're getting into territory where England have never gone before, and I mean that literally. It's not an exaggeration. Like, the only time England have beaten a top nation like France at a World Cup or at a European Championship in a knockout game is at Wembley. They've never done it outside of London. I think it's an incredible fact to say when you look at the history of the footballing history of a nation like England's, never to have won a game of that magnitude at a major tournament in a knockout situation. So this is where, you can't say it's the biggest game of Gareth Southgate's reign, because obviously he's been to a European Championship final. But in terms of his legacy, this is the defining one coming up, because this is somewhere that England's have always fallen before. Now you feel like it could be different, but obviously they've got to go out and prove it against a world-class side.
And it's not just the fact that if they get through France, well, they have to get through France, but if they do, you could very well have Messi on the other side of that, or the Dutch, should they come through and defeat the Argentines. Jordan, when you think about the French fixture, if there's still some holes that perhaps England has to be worried about, or maybe just not overthink anything, what gives you a little bit of pause going into that quarterfinal tie?
I mean, this is a game of basically England are great going forward, or you can see it today, but France are superb at going forward. Like, this is going to be a midfield battle. I forgot to also mention before with Phil Foden playing, and just how he's basically said, you know what, I should be starting at all times. This is what I could do. Gareth Southgate relinquished me. I've been ready and willing to play. And just him off the ball, his movement, the fact that he's just terrorizing defenders. I'm really excited for this France and England game, because I feel like they're both great at what they do, which is both going forward. Now, who is going to be more defensively sound on the day, and which midfield trio is going to be better as well? Because I think both of these sides, as I've said, are great going forward, but the deficiencies lie in the back line.
So France were excellent today again as well in a 3-1 win over Poland. I mean, it probably could have been more than that. Just one quick final shout out. It was 0-0 in the Senegal match, and Jordan Pickford had an incredible save. What we've learned here through these first four round of 16 games, these underdog teams, they need to take their chances, because they're few and far between. And there's been moments, the Pulisic miss, that miss here today, where it can kind of flip the game around, and it would have turned up the pressure on England, and Senegal would have played a much different way with no Idrissa Gueye, no Chikiote. They were just undermanned. But anyways, France today, it was never in doubt against Poland. This side is more dynamic than any other team going forward at this tournament. Mbappe down the left, Dembele down the right, Griezmann underneath. Now the record goal scorer, Olivier Giroud. That front four, it's balanced, it's quick, it's technically strong. You have a kind of a physical force in Giroud leading the line as well. They are going to be a handful. I do question, and this is where you see, I think Harry Maguire's played very well this tournament, but where he gets exposed is when the game becomes a little bit too quick. And whether he can deal with the pace, especially if Dembele and Mbappe start coming inside, can he deal with the pace of that French line? That's the biggest question for me about this game. If they can cope, if they can deal with that threat, then I think that England have a real chance here, because their midfield, Rice, Bellingham, the balance that they have with Foden and Saka in attack, there's a lot to like about this England side, but can they deal with that French attacking threat? Because the French are vulnerable defensively. I don't think that they're great defensively. So there could be some real goals in this game. But what's incredible is that they never played in a knockout game of a World Cup before. Only in the group stage in 66 and 82. So it's going to be a pretty special experience between two countries with that dug-in, entrenched dislike for one another.
Yeah, it's
I
certainly
want
going to
Kyle
be a
Walker treated
special.
like a king all week. Sorry, Adam. Like, I want people fanning him, feeding him fruit, like the full spa treatment to face Mbappe here.
If Ollie is unavailable for our next few shows, we know he is just picking grapes and just delivering them to his pride and joy. It will be a fun week for the English. A 3-0 victory over Senegal. Henderson, Kane, and Saka, the goal scorers. Gareth got the conversation started speaking about France and Poland. We do have to sink our teeth a little bit deeper into that match and bid farewell to the Poles. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to miss them. That's coming up next on Jordan Qatar. In the first round of 16 match of the day, it was France, the ones to celebrate. Allez les Bleus, a 3-1 victory with a brace from Kylian Mbappe and Olivier Giroud and a consolation for Robert Lewandowski. Kristian Jack, our man in Qatar, was on hand. Let's get KJ's thoughts on a convincing performance from the French.
It was a marvellous performance by Kylian Mbappe as he guided France into the final 8 at the World Cup once again with a defeat over Poland here at Al Thumama Stadium by 3-1. Some of the key numbers, of which there were many, we'll get into. How about 6? The minutes in between Poland's great chance in the first half as Zielinski's shot was saved by Lloris and then cleared off the line, and the goal that put France ahead for good, scored by Olivier Giroud. A record-setting goal, the number 52, as he overtakes the great Thierry Henry to become France's record goalscorer. That is a fantastic achievement for a player that is often seen as underrated and never really talked about in the quality of Thierry Henry. Although world-class stars eventually did shine here, that was Kylian Mbappe. Some other numbers to look into. 4-2-3-1. France's shape and system. It is an interesting one when often they look like they've got one too many players on the pitch when they've got the ball and sometimes needing more of a defensive responsibility without it. This is where Antoine Griezmann comes in. It looks like a 4-2-3-1, but out of possession is ineffectively a 4-4-2. Mbappe doesn't defend the flanks. Why would he? We'll get to that in a second. Rabiot moves over to the left, and then Griezmann drops in into the midfield, and it's effectively out of possession, a 4-4-2. And it's very effective, because when they win the ball back, you've got someone in quality of Griezmann to drive forward and start France's attacks. Nobody at this World Cup ignites quickly into the final third as much as the French, and of course they're led by the star boy himself, Kylian Mbappe. More numbers for you, 8 World Cup goals. That's what he did in the 74th minute with a phenomenal strike to make it 2-0, and when France get up 2-0, you know it's over. He joined some fantastic players on that list, including Cristiano Ronaldo, Eusebio as well, and then others were joined later. Lionel Messi, he joined him on 9. That's right, 9 World Cup goals already for Kylian Mbappe, and he's still only 23. It was a fantastic achievement and a fantastic performance. I spoke to the Polish right-back Matty Cash after the game, who got Mbappe's shirt, and you could see that he was amazed by the performance that he put in. He said he's the best player that he's played against, the quickest player he's played against. He was delighted with the performance, but overall, even he, much like the 40,000 plus here, were in awe of Mbappe. France are dangerous. Often you can get in behind their midfield, but with a player like Mbappe, they could be the favourites once again to win the World Cup here in Qatar.
Thank you very much, KJ. It's interesting how he's quick to highlight Mbappe not defending the flanks, doesn't need to. I almost gave myself permission to say, wow, he's playing a little bit lazy today, just stuck up. I remember he got challenged, thought there was a foul. I counted 20 seconds before I saw him drift into frame. 10 seconds later, he's scoring a highlight reel goal and reminding everyone just how phenomenal he is. And when you can score like that, I guess defense isn't as big of a priority. The only thing KJ didn't touch on that, and I want to get into that before we move on, Olivier Giroud with the record, of course, but I mean the overhead kick like 5 minutes later, the fact that that's not allowed to stand, I don't care if there's a foul. That deserves to be a goal because of how ridiculous it was. Thank you, Oliver Platt. If it's good enough of a goal, it should stay. I don't care what happens. There could be an egregious handball.
I didn't even think it was a foul.
Let's sink our teeth into this match a little bit, as I mentioned before the break. Look, the Polish get their goal. Robert Lewandowski had 2 attempts at it from the spot after an early jump from Hugo Lloris. But Jordan, when you think about the performance from Poland today, it would have taken a minor miracle to overcome the French.
You know what, Jenks? I challenged them yesterday on the show. They didn't hear, but We challenged them. We said, play better. You know, don't do this 9 and 1 forward and keep Lewandowski on the island. They played. Now, Wheels hit the nail right on the head. Zelensky has that opportunity where he tries to just kill it in the first half, right? If you pick a corner, I know easier said than done when the ball's cut back to you and it's rolling sweetly. Everyone wants to hit it. You want to be like that 7-year-old boy and just crank it and it goes top corner. But have some class and pick a corner, goes 1-0 up. That's what you want as Poland. So, you know, as the game progressed, as it went on, that France would wear you down and Mbappe would come to life. He looked sometimes lazy, but that's also just like the way he plays, his style. He's going to try things. And you're going to give him half an inch and then something miraculous will happen. Like, I'll let the other two gentlemen get into it and then I'll take us home with Mbappe talk because he's just been sensational throughout this tournament.
Gareth.
That's all I want to talk about is Kylian Mbappe right now because this French side loses their entire midfield coming into this tournament. Well, Pogba hasn't played this year. Conte hasn't played this year. Benzema, the top player in the world last year. And they don't skip a beat. And why? It's because Kylian Mbappe is on this team. He makes roughly $128 million a year.
Decent.
There's been some reports it could be just about double that. And I feel like he's partially collecting his paycheck for performing at this tournament. This is a tournament for Qatar. It's very important that the stars come out and shine the brightest. PSG's owner is Qatari Sports Investment. They pay him an obscene amount of money to play in the French league and be the face of that club. You know, with all due respect to Lionel Messi, Mbappe's the Frenchman. He's the player that is the present and the future of that club at just 23. The fact that he's now he's taken his game. I feel like in 2018 it was more like a collective team win, and Mbappe was still very young at that time. But this is his team right now. This is his World Cup. He is the best player in the world today, and we're seeing it at this tournament. It's phenomenal to watch. I did not think that this French team was going to be able to produce at this level, but with him, as dangerous as he is, it's not just in terms of scoring the goals at him. He set up Giroud's goal as well.
Yep.
Like his distribution has been fantastic. Defensive work, forget about. I don't even care about that. His running off the ball is sublime. There's no better player in the world today. And it's just, you know, it's the Qatari Sports Investment relationship and everything. I just feel like this is just all part of the plot. And we're watching this act play out before us.
Ollie, is there a record that Kylian Mbappe is not going to break, both for France or for the World Cup, if he keeps this up?
I mean, at this rate, probably not. You just never know with injuries in a player's career, but certainly he's on pace to do some pretty incredible things. Like the last 11 World Cups, the Golden Boot has been won with 5 or 6 goals by the top scorer in all but one of them, which was Ronaldo in 2002, who got 8. Mbappe's already got 5 in 3 starts at this tournament. Yeah. And it is Ronaldo who you kind of feel like that's what we're watching, right? Is a young Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo that is, who just has this unbelievable combination of instincts, of skill, of pace. Like it's all there. And you can't stop him when he's in full flow. So it's an amazing difference maker. You know, you can have teams that I think maybe, I don't think France have faced a real equal yet, but teams that might be pretty evenly matched, and then this guy just turns up and roofs one from 20 yards with half a yard of space to himself. You know, it's a huge factor at this tournament, and I'm starting to increasingly be with KJ that it might make France the favorites.
Jordan, you asked for the last word. You can have the last word.
Quickly, I just want to say he has an acceleration of like a Henry, like the confidence that I remember watching videos of Pele. Just like young Pele, like knows he's the best player on the pitch. And now what he's added to his game is that like knuckleball shot. Like before, if anyone was to break him down and be like, ooh, maybe his striking technique wasn't the best. He was just raw. Now he's striking the ball and he's like, this is going in. Like it looks like he's calling his shots. So this guy is dangerous. And at 23, I'm just so blessed and excited to see him progress and see him in a few more World Cups.
Final word on Olivier Giroud. Now that he's bested Thierry Henry, that means one thing and one thing only. CF Montreal, you are going to have a future head coach. Just let him retire, and then he's going to do the exact same move to Montreal.
I thought you meant a future striker.
Not quite. I'm grasping at straws, but what I'm trying to do is segue into some CF Montreal talk, because nobody is happier right now than Olivier Renard and Joey Saputo. Moving on, some big-time Canadians. That's right, Canada chat when we come back to Good Night Qatar. This is Good Night Qatar with Jordan Wilson, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler, and myself, Adam Jenkins. It's not just Good Night Qatar. Unfortunately, it's been goodbye Qatar for Canada. But on their way out, John Herdman was very, very excited, as he should be, about some of his potential superstars, thinking that there is going to be a lot of players soon to be on the move to what he loves to call those Tier 1 clubs. John also went on to say the following: coming into Qatar, our players, many of them were unheard of. Now, I think a lot of our players have built credibility as a collective group. They performed well together, but there were certainly some strong individual performances throughout the tournament. Well, if John was looking into his crystal ball, then perhaps he would have seen that Alistair Johnston was on the move from CF Montreal. That move to Celtic officially official. I don't think Alistair even needs to come home. He can just stay in and around Europe, because he's heading to Scotland next, and there will be another teammate of his joining him if Fabrizio Romano is correct, and who are we to doubt Fab there, with the links of Ishmael Kone to Watford. So very good things happening for those two players. Let's start with Alistair's, Ollie, because that is the one that is official. You can speak to Scotland, and I'm sure you'd love to gloat right now, but what I want you to do right now is I want you to speak to Scotland and tell them what kind of a player they're getting in Alistair Johnston.
They're listening, Ollie.
Got to be very careful. I think they're getting an excellent player. I describe him as the Canadian Azpilicueta to people who haven't seen him before. I think Alistair Johnston is that kind of player in terms of his adaptability, in terms of the range of his qualities. As a right-sided defender, whether he's playing right centre-back and a 3, right back or wing-back, as he showed increasingly he can do for CF Montreal this season as well. So just a player who I think is going to have utility wherever he goes, because of how adaptable he is, how tactically intelligent he is. But what I'm really excited to see now with Celtic is how he grows. Playing under a very good coach in Ange Postecoglou, I think has identified a lot of young players to come to that club who have real potential to go higher, and Johnston is going to be part of that group. And I think it's a good step for him in terms of the quality of football as well. You get the Scottish Premiership, with all due respect to it as a league, is probably not a significant step up on Major League Soccer nowadays. So you get that kind of easing in process of being able to adapt to that level. But then you also get playing in the Champions League, right, which is a massive step up and a massive area of growth for Alistair Johnston in terms of taking his game to the next level. So I think that's quite a nice balance. But yeah, just one of the most intelligent young players I've come across. A fantastic talker about the game. We all know that he's coming for our jobs after he retires. And a player who I think has really progressed incredibly rapidly, coming out of League One Ontario and college and into MLS and now at a World Cup as well. So I really think there's a lot more runway ahead of Alistair Johnston. I'm excited to see how that progresses at Celtic.
And Gareth, with Alistair's record, the most consecutive starts for a Canadian, you've seen a lot of this young man, and there's also perhaps some regret from other clubs in Scotland. I know you've been following this player closely. Anything to add? And then the floor is yours on Johnston.
First off, Alistair's not coming for our jobs. He does not want the pay cut, okay? It's going to be a dramatic pay cut once you move overseas and start playing over there. He's a little bit of a late bloomer, and I think that there was a little bit of wait and see when it comes to him. I know after last MLS season, I know this for a fact, he was trying to be pushed or be approached by a number of other clubs in Scotland, not Celtic, not Rangers, some of the other clubs, but they want to see a little bit more from him, as this was a player that was playing in League One Ontario. He played NCAA football in the United States, but before having a couple really good years. And if you're going to invest in a player that's a little bit more of a late bloomer, I believe he's 25 now, you want to be sure, right? So it's not as if you're taking a flyer on a 20, 21-year-old. You want a player that's more established. And I think that what you're seeing from Alistair Johnston is just about what you get. There is some room, obviously, for a player to still improve, but I don't think the ceiling is too much higher, but I'm not sure if it has to be, because like Ollie said, he has all the requisite requirements to go on and be a successful player for Celtic, and potentially even be in a shop window. That's the thing. When you play for a club like Celtic, you're always in the shop window for other clubs in the UK and across Europe as well. The recruitment's really interesting, Ollie, and you touched on it. North America, Carter Vickers is also with Celtic right now, and the managers also uses connections coaching previously in Japan to bring players from over there as well. Another really good in terms of emerging market, in terms of finding players for good value. So the fact that Canada is now put into that pile of nations that maybe is a little bit untapped, or maybe a place that you can get players for value where the prices aren't incredibly high, it's providing a real decent opportunity for savvy European clubs that kind of know what's up right now to go on and take full advantage of that. So kudos to Celtic.
It's been one heck of a ride for Alistair Johnston. Jordan, you played in the same competition as Alistair 3 years ago, so move for you isn't out of the woods yet, buddy. Just keep grinding. But I'll give you a word on Al if you want, but I also want you to speak a little bit about Ismail Kone as well, because that's another name where we expected him to move perhaps in the last few windows, but now with how he's shone, despite not getting a ton of minutes in Qatar, clearly he's done enough to prove to some pretty big clubs that he's ready.
Yeah, just a couple of things I want to touch on with Alistair Johnston. First one being him going to Celtic and the winning culture and how that would translate for Canada. Like, no disrespect to MLS, but going to a club that has been there for hundreds of years and has a winning, hard-nosed culture, like there's history, there's pedigree there. Like that is something for him. It is just it's a seamless marriage. Like if you watch Alistair Johnston, even if you don't know him, you watch him for 45 minutes. This is a guy that's getting stuck into tackles, that's running back, like has a extra battery pack. Like he just never gives up. Now he's gonna get the week in and week out, and also the training of just better competition. So he's going to come into CONCACAF, Gold Cup, the next World Cup, just seasoned. So super excited for him. One thing I want to mention to maybe young kids watching me, like, oh, the rise. Like 3 years ago, he was playing League One. And then he goes to the World Cup and he's playing now. Understand in moves like this, it is not something where he had a good World Cup tournament and Celtic's like, hey, we want to look at you. This is him being consistent for years now, of playing, not taking any days off, grinding, showing his quality. Even on a bad day, I've seen him not play his best matches, and he's still offering something. So also we want to get the story right, is that this is not something that overnight he woke up and he became a superstar. Like this is a kid that like worked at it, grinded, and now the next move has paid off. And I guarantee you with his brains, the fact that he's a utility man, he's going to take this experience and make it the best for him as well for his football career. Now, in terms of Ismail Kone, I think going to the championship, people talk about the Premier League all the time. The championship is a hard-nosed league. Like this is like elbows up. All these teams in the championship feel that they should be in the Prem. Like this is how they play. Like the Premier League is the bougie part of the championship. Like the championship is hard-nosed. So for him to go there, this is great because this is a talented young kid, but you have an option. Like, are you going to sink or swim? Are you going to embrace it and be like, this is my opportunity? I'm playing against hard guys that don't want to see me succeed. Some players will be like, man, you're 20. Like, this is not your time. Like, ride the bench. So this will be good. I want him to translate that to when he comes to Canada, that he should have that confidence. Like, hey, play me, Herdman. I have the experience under my belt, and I'm ready to just step into those shoes. So super excited for these two moves, and I'm just excited for these two young men to really just fully play the football they're about to play.
Gareth, Jordan mentions there is always a chance that these moves could be sink or they could be swim. What makes you optimistic that Ismail Kone can swim and swim laps in this league?
Because I have faith in the player's ability. He looks outstanding, and moving right now, it's a good time for him. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way. When I heard Watford, I was like, oh, okay. They clearly have an eye for talent at that club. and they brought in some wonderful talent: Ismail Yassar, João Pedro, Asprilla. They're all in the side right now. Some players with real value, and they're fourth place in the league championship. Under the ownership of Pozzo, they've had 16 managerial changes since 2002. It's 2012, sorry. It's been a revolving door. Like even since they were in the Premier League in 2017, they become a yo-yo club. And last year, the way that Roy Hodgson was unceremoniously left, and there was just no life in that club. Slaven Bilic is a coach right now, plenty of experience there. But is he going to be there long? That's my only question about this move. Is just their regular. It's a bad habit, changing managers too much, too often, lacking some consistency. So let's hope that Bilic stays and Watford are able to continue to build this program so the player can get the most out of it, Ollie.
Yeah, I think the question there is does it matter, right? At least in terms of player development. Like, you're right, it's destabilized Watford in terms of their success as a club, I think. But when you actually look at, they've had some good young players there, and Udinese as well. Like, Richarlison came to England at Watford initially, right? Now he's starting as Brazil's number 9. So they've been a little bit underrated, I think, in terms of their ability to develop or identify young players from other countries and then move them on. I'm not sure if the managerial changes have too much of an effect on that. And Ismail Kone, for me, just briefly, like, he is as exciting as it gets in terms of young Canadian players. Like, since we saw Alfonso and Jonathan David go to Europe, this kid, I think, is the one with the most potential out of all of the rest since then. I really believe that. So going to be excited to see him.
So we heard Norwich City, Sheffield United. Is Watford a better place to go than those two clubs? I genuinely asked the question. I'm not saying that it can't be, because there's some great talent within that club right now. Those were the ones that were, at least publicly, he was publicly linked to. We'll see. Every move that you make, there's inherent risk. But Watford, again, they're in a position to be promoted, 4th place in the table right now. They're going to be in the mix. So he just goes straight into it, which I think is actually a good thing. I
heard Marseille was in the mix as well, Ali, which I thought. I thought for sure maybe that little French connection would be the way as well. But
listen, at the end of the day, there is a moose on the Watford crest. Canadian, Kone, moose, Watford. See it all. The calculus in my head, it all adds up. Let's move on to a segment that we're going to call Need a Move or Stay Put. And like we like to do on at One Soccer, very simple games where the name is explained exactly what's to come. So these players, do they need a move or should they stay put? You with me? I hope so. Let's start with Jonathan Osorio. Ollie, does he need a move or should Oso stay put?
Tricky one, this. I'm going to say need a move. I think Osorio, I always have got the impression from him that he wants to test himself somewhere else, and now is the time to do it. I'd like to see him maybe go overseas.
Gareth?
I'm going to be Oliver Platt here and sit on the fence a little bit. Because honestly, if he wants to move, I encourage him to move. But does he have to move? No, he's fine where he is. He's a club legend in Toronto, and there's value in staying as well.
Jordan?
So this is the only one out of the list that, like,
yes,
because of Oso and like knowing him and growing up playing against him, I still haven't forgiven him for beating me 1-0 in the Robsa finals my senior year. But we're always like, when are you gonna get a move? Like, when are you gonna get a move? Like, he should move. I thought this like 5 years ago. Now, I think he should just be Mr. TFC like he's been. So I would say stay put. You asked me 3 years ago, I'd say go. But for now, I think he needs to stay put.
I love a little region of Peel hostility coming into the show. Well, speaking of the region of Peel, Kyle Larin, we know it hasn't gone great for him so far as a sidekick with Tejan Buchanan in Belgium. Gareth, does he need a move or should he stay put?
Need a move.
Mic drop.
Just try to keep this moving.
I like that. I'm okay with that. Oliver Platt?
Yeah, it needs a move. Not playing enough at Club Brugge. I think he's got to get something sorted in January.
Jordan Wilson?
It's unanimous. He needs a move, and he needs to sink his teeth into wherever he goes next. Like, he cannot have a slow start. He needs to go in and be like, man, I'm a big dog. Play me, bust net. Like, it needs to just be no nonsense.
Bruges is too focused on developing. Like, look, they're in the Champions. They've moved on to the Champions League. There's a little bit for the now, but they're rolling with very young players in order to accomplish their goals. And Lara needs to play a place where they want him to play right now and contribute.
As long as they have room for an athletic therapist with a big bag of shawarmas in case the unthinkable happens. Jordan Wilson, Richie Laryea, this is a tricky one.
Today, Adam. Well done.
It's a tricky one with Forrest because he got his move and then he's back at TFC. Does Richie Laryea need a move or should he stay put once that loan is recalled or finished?
I think stay put. I mean, I think when he first moved, I was like, yeah, let's see how he does, like in the championship or not. And then obviously not playing. Yeah, I think he should stay put. I think for him, he needs to play where he's loved. I think what he can offer week in and week out, I think he does best or will thrive best being like at home and being with the people that he loves.
Ollie.
I'm going to say needs a move. I really strongly believe that Richie Laryea can succeed at the championship level or another level, that he could step to in Europe. The circumstances didn't work out for him at Nottingham Forest. They were chasing promotion. They didn't want to make changes to their team, but I don't think that should discourage him from the quality of player he is. I think we saw it at this World Cup.
Gareth?
Nottingham Forest this week just signed their 23rd player this season. That screams need a move.
Well, we're basically doing a fire sale with CF Montreal players, so I'd like to talk about Kamal Miller, but instead I'm going to keep the French connection and just slide it over to Ligue 1 and talk about Jonathan David. Ollie, do you think Jonathan David needs a move, or do you think he should stay put for now and continue to build up that CV?
January, I'm going to say stay put. Summer needs a move. I think he should finish the season with Lille. He's in brilliant form right now. Let's see what you can do over a full campaign.
Gareth?
Same thing, exactly the same as Ollie. Stay in January, move in June.
Majority unanimous. Jordan, what do you think?
It is unanimous. I think with strikers, if you switch too quickly or too early, who knows when that is, right? It could just be catastrophic. You're on the bench or injuries. It's just like play where you're comfortable, play where you're busting net, because that move will always be around the corner.
All right. Well, there you have it. I hope agents were listening. If you need a little bit more advice, you can give these gentlemen a call. Just DM me and I'll give you their numbers. That doesn't sound suspicious at all. That's an interesting way to throw to break, but that's where we're heading next. But when we come back, we are going to talk about tomorrow's round of 16 matches, and we have a couple of exciting ones. Once again, Brazil and Korea Republic, Japan and Croatia. Can an AFC club shock a European or South American nation? Stick with us on Good Night Qatar. The round of 16 continues on Monday. Japan and Croatia, the first match in the morning. Can the Samurai Blue continue on their impressive form? I think there might be some Canadian support for the Japanese in that one. And then Brazil and Korea Republic at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's KJ on those matchups.
Two more games are on the schedule here in Qatar on Monday, and the major headline around these, Neymar returns for Brazil. Their head coach Chichi confirmed in his press conference on Sunday that Neymar is back and will go straight into the starting 11 for their last 16 clash against South Korea. Now, if you're thinking this looks like a pretty one-sided affair, of course you'd be right. Brazil have never lost to an Asian team in the World Cup. South Korea in 6 attempts have never beaten a South American team. They also played each other in a friendly in June, and Brazil dismantled them by 5-1. If you're also thinking Brazil always get through to the quarterfinals of most World Cups, you'd also be right, unless you're old enough like me to remember 1990. They played Argentina in the last 16 and were very good that day, but in the end, the likes of Careca, Branca, Jorginho, Taffarel and others were gut-punched by Claudio Canigia's 81st minute winner as Argentina broke Brazilian hearts and sent them out of the World Cup at the last 16. Brazil will fully expect to make the quarterfinals in this game and are massive favourites to do so. In the other game, it should be closer. Croatia take on a Japanese team that has already beaten Spain and Germany in this World Cup without having a lot of possession. This will probably be the same. Croatia will dominate possession, but what will Japan do when they get it? They're a transitional team, and they are determined to make history. Japan have made the last 16 for the first time in back-to-back World Cups. We all remember what happened last time, up 2-0 against Belgium, and then they capitulated and lost by 3-2. Will they be as cautious? Will they be as naive? We'll see what happens as Japan try to make history. As for Croatia, the third time they've made the knockout stages, and they always get past the last 16. Of course, they finished third in 1998 and were the runners-up 4 years ago.
Well, Croatia will be heavily expected to move on from that round of 16 match, but don't think the Japanese aren't feeling a little bit of confidence here. In fact, they're feeling pretty confident here and trying to channel one of my favorite quotes that I've heard coming out of this tournament. Let's take a look. This is Yuto Nagatomo, the defender. We played against Germany, Costa Rica, and Spain, and we went through from the group stage as the #1 team. We are very confident now and believe in ourselves. We can do it. Until now, Japan was not able to go past the round of 16. I myself have been at 4 World Cups, and I've been to the last 16 2 times, but we could not overcome it. I was very upset at those times, but tomorrow we hope to be very good again. We hope to make history tomorrow by winning, channeling their inner samurai. That is what Yuta Nagatomo wants to see them do. Can they channel that samurai spirit? Jordan, are you a believer in this nation?
I am. This is a Japan team. I saw them play Canada, where they had a lot of the ball, they were possessing, but I read a stat like 38% possession between Spain and Germany. Like, they don't care to have the ball. They don't mind like not having it and try to counterattack and punch, but they are the most efficient team at doing that. Like scoring 2 goals within 5 minutes and then 2 goals again in 8 minutes. Like, when they punch hard. Now, the thing with Croatia is they're going to want to play a slow tempo game, and Japan have the legs and the desire to get down the pitch and just harass you in moments. So this is very, very good game, because a team that like Croatia, who wants to just possess and keep the ball moving, Japan doesn't mind watching that or keeping them at bay and then just kind of taking their moment, and they've been taking it well. So Japan could definitely do something tomorrow.
Raleigh?
Yeah, I think this is potentially the most interesting match of the round of 16, because it's one that doesn't feel like a big mismatch to me. I actually think, although Croatia will be considered favourites, that it's quite evenly matched. I look at this Croatian team, I think Jordan is spot on. They will try and slow down the game, and Japan will try and do the exact opposite, right? They like tempo and pace and getting in your face and hitting you in transition. And I think it could be quite a difficult matchup for Croatia for all of those reasons. The other big question I have with Croatia is just the longer this tournament goes on, where are they at physically? Particularly that midfield. We know it's a top-class group, but it is also an older group. How much do they have in the tank to get through what is always a grueling knockout stage after their exertions in the group stage? And I think you could see a bit of that in the Belgium game at the end of the group stage. So I think this one's ripe for an upset. I think Japan have a real shot.
I'm going bold here and predicting penalties for the first time here at Qatar 2022. When Croatia went to the finals in 2018, it was through penalties, extra time. Then they lost to France in the final. Like, they're a team that likes to slow it down, play controlled football, and I think they'll be afraid of Japan. We saw the statistic just put on the screen just a moment ago. Japan has 32.3% possession this tournament thus far, and they beat the 2010 and 2014 champions in the process. Croatia, honestly, very lucky that they're still even in this tournament. They're outplayed by Belgium. If Romelu Lukaku finished his chances, he would have been fine. Like, Belgium would be going on and Croatia would be going out. Japan has the legs. This is a Japanese side. A lot of their players play in German football. They're accustomed to a lot of these players and this style of play, which is maybe a little bit slower than some of Europe's other leagues. I think that there's not much between these two sides. I can see it being 1-1 in this game going to penalties.
Oh, I'm going to come back to you because I was so impressed with you busting out some sweet rhymes in that first answer. Something about tempo and pace and going right at your face. I thought it was fantastic. I want to hear more of that. Do you think Croatia can do it? And they've not scored in 2 of their 3 matches. We know the match that they scored 4 goals in, but do you think they can rediscover their offense in time?
Well, they're not the most talented team at the top end of the pitch. And I think that will probably be ultimately what cost them at some point in the tournament. I'm not sure if it'll be this round or maybe the next one, but that is the shortcoming with Croatia. Is as good as the midfield is, they're not necessarily stacked with top-class players as much as they are able to pick Canada apart. They don't have the quality of some of the other teams in terms of that front three. So that, I think, is again, another reason why I think this is going to be a difficult one for them.
Gareth?
I gave my prediction. I'm ready to move on to Korea, Brazil, whatever you are.
Penalties, okay. Jordan, you want to make sure you got the chance for one final word. That's all,
no,
Jordan.
I'm good.
Jordan, don't stand me up too now.
Yeah, I'm. The only thing I'll say about the Japanese is they never say die attitude could be the difference maker tomorrow. In extra time when Japan win 2-1. So I'm going to go a bit deeper than you.
Matoma winner. How about that? I'll throw that in.
Thank you, Gareth. This isn't going to age well, but I will probably give Japan the kiss of death by saying with no Canada, Wales, or the Socceroos, I'm all on board the Japanese train. So if it fails, you can all...
Heartbreak in 2018. Hopefully they learned their lesson after leading Belgium 2-0 and throwing away that lead. Chance for redemption for them this time around.
Don't score too early.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Well, Gareth, you were excited. You wanted to talk about Brazil and Korea Republic. So why don't you get us started here? Look, you think of Brazil, a lot of people still have them as the favorites. Neymar's back. Do we know if he's ready? Well, that's an interesting one. But let's first, before we go into the chat, there's actually a quote that I want to share because some people were rightfully asking the question, is it a good idea to play Neymar? Do they think he has had enough time to recover? This was coming from their head coach. I prefer to use my best players from the beginning. As the head coach, I have to take that responsibility, and that is my preference. Chiche, he's all in on Neymar. It's a pretty good strategy if he's fit, Gareth. Now to you, A, do you think that's the right strategy? And B, even without a Neymar at 100%, do you think they have the quality to get it done here?
Yes, it's the right strategy, but it's never straightforward with Neymar, is it? Like 2014, it was a national day of mourning when he injured his back and he got knocked out of the competition and they lost 7-1. It always comes with a little bit of risk because of the expectations that surround this player, because he's an absolute icon of the game. It's just now with this team kind of starting to lose some numbers. Jesus won't be playing. Alex Telles is out. Alexandro's dealing with an issue. They're a little bit thin at left back. Then you look up top. Perhaps they're a little bit more thin than you once thought that they were actually going to be. It puts more of an onus on Vinicius and Richarlison and Rodrigo and players like that. So are they ready to take that next step? Yes. Min-jae is an excellent center back for South Korea. He's one of the top and emerging center backs in European football, playing for Napoli right now. Didn't play last game. He has a little bit of a fitness problem. If he's in, I think that Brazil's going to have a much more difficult time breaking them down. I just don't think they're going to play them off the field just in terms of putting the ball into the back of the net. If he's out, I think that South Korea might really struggle here to keep this close. He's that important of a player for South Korea in this game. And Brazil, is just the drama starting to pick up, isn't it? As kind of the positivity is kind of going Argentina's way. There's some little discussions, a little angst there for Brazil, just the way you like it at this stage of the competition.
Jordan, I think of you as an authority figure, so I'm going to ask you the coaching question. Would you play Neymar if you were in charge of team selection?
I wouldn't. And the reason why I wouldn't is because I've been begging Neymar, writing him letters for years, saying, "Hey, buddy, just release the ball a bit sooner. Like, you're the best player, quickest, have the most tricks, right? But you always want to show it at all times, and then you're getting kicked 12 times and a half, and your foot turns into a balloon. It's like time and place, brother. Like when it's time when you have a guy 1v1, cool, but you don't have to go and take on and beat 6 guys at once. So I say all this to say I wouldn't start him because that's what usually the first 20 minutes of a match looks like. Like people are coming in late, whatever it might be. Neymar trying his trickery, trying to get things sorted. I don't think that's a good thing. I think putting him on maybe in the 55th, 60th minute when the game's opened up in some way or you need something different, I think that could serve him well. So if I'm Chite, I'm not starting him. And I also think that he, even with Gabriel Jesus being out, he still has a plethora of options to mix and match going forward.
Jordan's getting stuck in with Neymar 5 minutes into the match if he's starting for the Koreans tomorrow. Ollie, what do you say? Final word to you.
I think Brazil should be able to beat Korea without Neymar, so I don't think you're taking any risks with him whatsoever if he's not ready. I do think, and I'd be interested to get Jordan's opinion on this as a player, but I think there's logic in the idea that instead of bringing a player who's returning from injury on as a sub, why not play him from the start when he's gone through his routine, he's warmed up properly, he's ready to go in that early stage of the game, and then you can potentially hook him at halftime if needed, as opposed to bringing him in in the 60th minute or whatever, or he's gone for a little jog down the touchline and then he's thrust into the game. I always thought when I've heard that suggested a couple of times over the past couple of years, and I thought there was a degree of sense to it.
Well, we will
Absolutely.
see.
I think most people would say that, Ali. Sorry, Jenks. I think most people would say, hey, if you're feeling fresh, the best thing to do, warm up with the squad, go and start. I've seen it happen so many times with Neymar, and I'm just like, start him the first 20 minutes, then he's out for the tournament. So I'm like, hold him back. I think Brazil could go further. You also give him a bit of time to start him, to play him, and then the risk of him being injured is just going to be catastrophic for the whole nation of Brazil.
Yeah, and you know that Neymar, with all the attention that Mbappe and Messi are getting right now, wants a little bit of that spotlight back on him.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it's the right decision. One final break today. We're going to wrap up the show. When we come back, play a little What Are the Odds with Jordan, Gareth, and Ollie. Stay with us. Welcome back to Good Night Qatar. Time for a quick game of What Are the Odds? Remember, we're staying with our system. The name of the game explains how the game works. What are the odds that this nation will win the World Cup? We'll begin with Jordan Wilson with France. What are the odds they win the World Cup?
You asked me 2 weeks ago, I was saying 30%, but I'm at like a 60 right now.
Woo!
60%. A confident Jordan Wilson.
Wheels with a lot to work with.
I know we'll perhaps get as much confidence with Ollie here. Ollie, what are the odds that England win the World Cup?
Well, I've only got 40% left now to play with here, so I've got to go a bit lower. I have England at 15%.
1-5. That's not 5-0. 1-5%.
1-5, yeah.
Okay, see, that's the cautious pessimism from Oliver Platt. Gareth Wheeler, Brazil and Argentina are going to combine them both. A South American team to win the World Cup. What are the odds?
98%.
Goodness, 98%. Well, based on
collision court to the semifinal. Whoever wins that semifinal is going to go on and win the World Cup.
So France, England, Spain have a 2% chance of winning the World Cup.
That might age poorly. We'll get a step closer to our answer tomorrow with that doubleheader we previously alluded to. For Gareth, Jordan, Ollie, I've been Adam. Thanks for joining us on Good Night Qatar.